Hello, you're watching Shalom World News. I'm Katie Asco from Dublin, Ireland, and these are your latest headlines from around the world. On Tuesday, founder of persecution watchdog Open Doors, Andrew van der Bijl, passed away at the age of 94. Better known across the world as Brother Andrew, he gained renown for his efforts to smuggle copies of the Bible into communist nations, earning him the nickname God's Smuggler. In a statement, Open Doors USA said that Brother Andrew visited over 125 nations across 6 decades. He has gone home to be with God, whom he spent his life serving, the organisation said in the statement. He was born in the Netherlands in 1928, and during the Nazi invasion he went into hiding to avoid being conscripted. Brother Andrew was launched to fame when he published his book God's Smuggler in 1967. Authors John and Elizabeth Sherrill describe in detail how Brother Andrew smuggled millions of Bibles into communist countries in Eastern Europe using his Volkswagen Beetle. May he rest in peace. In the US state of Florida, Hurricane Ian has been downgraded to Category 1. However, it continues to pound the peninsula with 90-mile-per-hour winds, storm surges and flooding, leaving almost 2 million people without power. At midnight, the storm was 70 miles south of Orlando, and Jacksonville International Airport has cancelled all flights for Thursday. With one of the worst hurricanes surging across Florida, governors of other states are issuing warnings to residents. Separately in Cuba, Hurricane Ian wreaked havoc by flattening homes, flooding streets, and damaging churches. There are 2 confirmed casualties, and more than 50,000 people have been evacuated. Fallen electric poles and snapped power cables have plunged the island into darkness. The Diocese of Pinar del Rio, which was mostly affected by the hurricane, has sought prayers from the faithful during this natural disaster. Pope Francis has invited the faithful worldwide to recite the Rosary in October, the month dedicated to the Holy Virgin. Urging the faithful to rediscover the beauty of the Rosary, the Holy Father asked them to seek the intercession of the Virgin for peace, personal needs, and the world. The pontiff proclaimed the necessity of the Rosary after greeting the Polish-speaking faithful at the Wednesday General Audience. He urged the faithful to pray the Rosary in their families and communities, entrusting themselves to the Virgin. Separately, after the General Audience, the Holy Father also prayed for those martyred in Ukraine, as the Russian occupation has spanned 7 months. The Holy See has announced that Pope Francis is scheduled to visit the Persian Gulf island nation of Bahrain in November. On Wednesday, September 28th, the Holy See press office issued a statement confirming the papal trip from November 3rd to 6th. Accepting the invitations by ecclesiastical and civil authorities of Bahrain, the Holy Father will visit the capital city of Manama and Awali to participate in the Bahrain Forum for Dialogue, East and West for Human Coexistence. The itinerary of the visit is yet to be unveiled by the Holy See. If it takes place, Pope Francis will be the first pontiff to visit Bahrain. In 2014, the Holy Father received in audience Bahrain King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, during which they discussed peace and stability in the Middle East. In November last year, the King invited the Holy Father to visit his country through his diplomatic affairs advisor, who had an audience with the Pope. The Embassy of the United States in Moscow has alerted all Americans in Russia to leave the country at the earliest. This comes after President Vladimir Putin ordered partial mobilization last week to conscript 300,000 soldiers to fight in Ukraine. The embassy issued a warning on Tuesday, saying that Moscow might refuse to acknowledge dual nationals' US citizenship and prevent them from accessing consular assistance. It also said that they could be prevented from leaving the country and forced to join the army. The embassy warned that the ability to leave Russia has already become increasingly difficult, with limited commercial flights and crowded border checkpoints. Those residing or travelling in Russia should depart the country immediately, said the embassy in a statement. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of conscripted men are fleeing the country and seeking refuge in neighbouring Mongolia, Finland, and Kazakhstan. Justice Samuel Alito of the United States Supreme Court has reiterated the significance of his Catholic faith in serving the highest court of the nation. Justice Alito, who was the author of the verdict that overturned Roe v. Wade, was speaking to law students at the Catholic University of America on Tuesday. He said a person's faith shapes what kind of person he or she is. He added that it should also affect the way you treat people when serving as a judge. He He was giving the inaugural lecture at the opening of the university's new project on constitutional originalism and the Catholic intellectual tradition. This explores the relationship of Catholicism to American constitutionalism and focuses on church doctors such as St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas. Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives are pressuring Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice to probe a series of cyber attacks against pro-life and Christian websites. The attacks took place after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade on June 24th this year. There are allegations that the calculated attacks were politically motivated. Republican lawmakers on the House Oversight Committee said in a letter to the Attorney General that cybercrimes against centre-right groups are rising. They said these are aimed at silencing conservative voters. In their letter, the lawmakers wrote that the Department of Justice must investigate the attacks, which are likely unlawful and are intended to suppress the rights of citizens. They also sought more clarity on what steps are being taken to crack down on such attacks. In a televised interview on Fox and Friends on Wednesday, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin defended his new draft policies relating to transgender students in public schools. He pointed out that the new rules would protect the dignity, privacy, and safety of students. "We want first to love every kid," Governor Youngkin said in the interview, adding that he wants to ensure their dignity and privacy are protected. And the difference in what our policies are focused on is indeed bringing parents fully in, he said. Youngkin's 2022 model policies define the word sex as biological sex. The policy also defines a transgender student as a public school student whose parent has requested in writing, due to their child's belief that his or her gender differs from his or her sex, that their child is so identified while at school. He added that the new policies would ensure that if parents authorize a change in a student's name, pronoun, or bathroom use, accommodations would be made accordingly. The UK government was forced to re-evaluate its gender-related guidance for children because of a lawsuit filed by a Christian couple. Nigel and Sally Rowe approached the court when a school labelled their 6-year-old son as potentially transphobic. In an interview with Fox News Digital, parents Nigel and Sally described how they first raised concerns with their son's Isle of Wight primary school after he was confused by the school's gender policies. "For a child, it's very confusing because they will go to school and he'll be taught one thing," Nigel said. Jonathan Butcher of the Heritage Foundation has drawn similarities between the battle the Rows have been fighting in the UK and the one parents are fighting over gender-related issues in US schools. Since the Rows have won their case, the UK Department of Education will be re-evaluating the guidance for transgender identifying students. The agency has said it will reform official guidance on these issues. The head of the Italian Episcopal Conference has urged the new leadership of Italy to stand up for the poor and the vulnerable. Cardinal Matteo Zuppi of Bologna Archdiocese has said that the Church would pursue the common good with severity. He added that the Church would not miss its contribution to promoting a just and inclusive society. He made this announcement in the wake of the three-party alliance led by Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy party, which emerged victorious in the general election. The 45-year-old Conservative leader is set to become the first female Prime Minister of the country, and this the 70th Italian government since the end of World War II. She has been outspoken on her intent to defend life and family. Catholic bishops in France have warned President Emmanuel Macron's government that legalizing assisted dying would jeopardize the country's ethical equilibrium on this issue. The bishops issued a statement saying that a balance had been found in avoiding relentless treatment and promoting palliative care. The bishop said that caregivers are attached to this balance as they feel it gives honour to their profession and work. They also cited how during the first wave of the pandemic, society made weighty sacrifices to defend the most vulnerable. The government is planning to legalise assisted dying by the end of the year. The prelate said that palliative care should first be made available across the nation before any reforms are enacted. In mid-September, the president began a national debate on legalising euthanasia. A feature-length documentary on Saint Michael the Archangel was released across the United States on Thursday. Entitled Saint Michael Meet the Angel, it is being distributed by Fathom Events. The documentary explores how the Archangel has been venerated across the centuries, especially in shrines across Europe. It is the first in a new series rolled out by Fathom Events named the Saints series. The 90-minute narrative in English is packed with details on the saint and his believed intervention in stopping the spread of plague in different eras in Europe. It also shows the breathtaking sanctuaries dedicated to the Archangel. Those are your latest headlines. Do join us tomorrow and visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.